Ion.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Hell I Don't Know, the podcast. I am Nickie. This is
Darrell.
Jordan.
one day
We
you
still,
guys will get it.
it's been 17, 18 episodes. We still ain't
It's
got
not.
that.
I think that's just our thing at this point.
This
I
is
mean, people know we work.
Jordan.
I would also like to point out that we are all sitting in hoodies in the middle of
I
July.
just noticed that.
We are.
Come on, baby,
Which
AC.
Which shows that the AC is pumping in all of our places.
Yep,
Right.
because it is the middle of July and we are all sitting up here in hoodies. I also have a heater on my floor that's like warming my feet.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
Commitment.
Okay, that's a lot. In the
Oh, here's Darrell with some technology issues.
Wait,
Actually,
what?
funny enough, I saw you freeze. I saw you freeze, Nickie.
Oh wow.
That's what you get for being shady.
Change of events.
Change
never
of
win
events.
when you
Wow,
play
okay, it was back
dirty.
to normal.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, now it's.
Now it's Darrell.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's okay. Hopefully it all works. We'll see when we get this edited. Anyway, how are your weeks? How are you guys doing? We can start with Darrell since he wants to talk.
My week has been crazy and a lot and very stressful and a lot and emotionally a lot and yeah, there was some things going on in my personal life that I'm not going to chat about here, but I am great now thanks to therapy and somewhat to Nickie. And yeah, we're good. How about you, Jordan?
Well, I'm glad that you're good now. Just let me start by saying that. I'm good. This is my last full week in New York City, so that is very hard for me to process. But I don't know. It's still like this thing where it's like I don't know if it's just going to hit me until I leave or something. So it's like I know I'm leaving, but it's like I don't think it's like hitting me fully. So, but yeah.
Are you nervous?
I think it hits you when the moving truck is there because then you're like, oh wait, this is actually real.
Yeah, that's true too. So I think everything still feels like I'm here right now. So until I'm like gone, it's like okay. So.
Yeah.
Remind me, have you spent a sig? I don't know if we talked about where you're moving to, so I ain't gonna say that unless you
He
want
did.
to.
He literally announced it.
Oh, he did. Okay, short-term memory. I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay, so have you spent a considerable amount of time in Chicago?
Yes, I actually went to school there. So
Oh.
I've been there for like I think I was there for like what 2.5, almost 3 years. So
There we go. Well, then it's gonna be great. You're gonna have so much fun. It's gonna be awesome. And honestly, New York
yeah.
is kind of whack these days. So
I was like, this is the best time to probably do it. So
I'm
And
getting up out of here too, child.
just real quick, I want people to understand how whack New York is. Like my old apartment is 392 square feet and it's going for $2,650.
Mm,
That apartment is not worth $2,600.
yeah,
wow.
that's I would
Yeah,
agree with that.
especially going off of square footage. So
392 square feet for $2,650 is kind of crazy, and that doesn't include like parking, Wi-Fi, internet.
I'll also say you weren't
flights.
even in a great location, to be honest. Like, I mean, you were in a not a great location. It wasn't a bad location, but it's just like not like worth $2,600 for a 300 and some square feet location. You
Right. It
know,
wasn't like I was in Tribeca for
right?
that rate.
exactly.
It was just like
Ridiculous.
$2,600 is not. It is not. It's honestly not worth $1,500. If I'm being honest, but that's a different
Damn.
story for a different day.
Well, there we go.
Damn. Well, I feel like anywhere else it would not be that price though, for sure.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm happy you guys are doing well. I'm doing okay too. It's been like an interesting week, not for anything negative or positive. It's just been like a wavy week. I did go to Black Scene on Sunday in Chicago. So if those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically where a bunch of black people all get on boats and then all of our boats connect and then there's like music that's played. People are dancing on boats. It's like a good time on the lake of like Black people all on like yachts and stuff. So it comes around once a year in Chicago. So if you're ever here, I suggest go to Black Sea.
Only Black people are invited.
I mean, no, there were some like white people sprinkled through and some like Asian people and Latin people like sprinkled through, but like 97% of them were Black.
Okay.
Yeah, Darrell, what is playing in your house?
That's
I was like, what is that?
you know what? I thought that was y'all at first, and then I was like, wait, I think that might be me. That's outside my y'all. I live in Washington Heights in New York City. Listen, it's outside my window. I
They
can't
said
control that. I'm sorry.
they sound like they're like right inside of your apartment. That's so crazy.
Well, you know, my
Yes.
room is like facing the street, like a busy street. So like
Hmm.
maybe I don't know why they drive through. They literally drive through the streets with like speakers blaring, but like speaking to people. No, 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 no. It's like it's not even that. It's like people speaking, like people talking. It almost sounds like preaching. I don't really know what it is, but people just be like driving through the streets or like carrying speakers with them, and they're just like talking about stuff. And I'm like, I don't really know what that is, but all right, cool, go off, sis. All right.
Wow.
Anyway,
Well, the ghetto.
so sorry
But
about that.
anyway, today we are going to engage in what I call an interesting. Jordan, is Daryl frozen for you?
In a very funny way. Okay,
Yeah.
it's gone
Okay,
now.
now he's gone.
Oh man.
What is happening over there with Daryl? Like, Daryl, you were like frozen with your mouth like
I
open
don't
and your
know.
eyes like wide, completely wide open.
Okay, but the thing is, Jordan was fine, and you were frozen on my edge. That's why it's weird. I don't know. It's probably me, but let's just keep going.
Wow, we're having some technical
We're gonna hope
issues today.
everything is okay when we look at this back on the back end. But if it's not, you guys understand why. Anyway, but today's episode, we're actually gonna have a more serious conversation. And that whole conversation honestly is just around adulting. And just being an adult. And I'm going to ask and start us off with this question that anyone can answer first. What you are experiencing now as an adult, is it what you expected?
No.
Okay. Elaborate.
um well, I mean, obviously naively, I think when I was younger I had a different perception of how I thought this was going to go and thought this was going to be. I'll just take New York alone. I feel like like I said, naively, I feel like I thought of it in a very living single kind of way, just like, oh, this is going to be, I'm going to move to New York, I'm going to live out my dreams, blah, yada, yada, kind of thing like that. And yeah, and then I was like, oh shit, being an adult is kind of hard. So, and a lot more came with it than I realized would happen. I guess I just thought, because I feel like too, just because like middle school and high school, not that it was easy, but it was like, I feel like that made sense when that stuff was like difficult. But when I feel like I got older, I was like, and then I like moved out on my own, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually really challenging, because I was like so ready to leave my house and
Mhm.
leave home, and then my parents were like, are you sure you can stay? And I'm like, no, I got to get out of here. And then it's like I leave, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I should have maybe I should have like went to college near home or something. So yeah, it
What
was
about you?
different.
Yeah. What about you, Daryl?
Um, I mean, I was not one of those kids that wanted to hurry up and grow up. I was definitely a like I enjoy not having responsibilities type of person, and I very much am kind of still that way. Um, I clearly am not great at being an adult because I need to have better Wi-Fi. So, failing. But no, sorry, I just cracked myself up. No, but being serious, I think that the when I was younger, and I'm pretty sure that we all thought this when I was younger, and this probably is a testament to my parents, but I thought that adults knew everything. I thought that adults were right about everything. I thought that adults were just like fully knowledgeable people, and that one day I would be that person. Um, but as an adult, I recognize that like we are literally the exact same people that we are kids, just with more responsibilities, and we cover it up better. And adults don't have all the answers. My parents don't have all the answers, and I feel like there has been this like weird adjustment for me into like, because we have this idea of what adulting is, but in my through therapy I've learned that adulting is really just being able to like take care of yourself at the very base level. Like that's what adulting is. But we also have these societal pressures and these expectations of what we're supposed to be able to do as adults, and I think that's where the conversation comes in. Like, are you good at it? Are you succeeding at it? It affects your personality, and it affects your self-esteem, and it affects your confidence. And I think that for me specifically, I'm still kind of grappling with the fact that like as a 35-year-old man, I don't feel like I am adulting as well as I should be right now. Although like, my bills are paid, like I'm pretty happy in general and I, have love all around me. I still feel like I don't got my shit together. So, yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think of adulting like, for me, I look at it as like what I imagine the goalpost being is actually a lot further than I thought it was. And there are a lot more people on the field than I thought were going to be on the field when I became an adult. And what I mean by that is, I'm not necessarily talking about like people as in like physical people, but more so like the things that the hurdles and challenges that you go through as an adult that like no one can prepare you for. And even I would say in my personal purview that even our parents couldn't have prepared us for, because I think we adult very differently than our parents adulted when they were our age. Like, my parents were born during, they're baby boomers. So they were born, my mom graduated from a segregated high school and all that. The way they navigated life with, I would call them macro aggressions, where they knew what those were and they knew how to factor those into like adulting. But I feel like for us, we have to adult with microaggressions, which is an entirely different beast and an entirely different like mindset shift that has to go on with us, because no one can prepare you for something that you can't see.
Mm.
And you can't necessarily call it out, because then people will think you're being hysterical, delusional, or if you do respond, you're now being aggressive. And I guess what I'm saying is adulting as black men is also very, very different than what I imagined adulting to be, that like my dad never prepared me for. Like, do y'all like feel that as well?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Actually, to mostly everything that you said, I think, to, like I said, going back to moving here, I think I was like, oh, like I got this job in the bag or this thing that I'm going to do in the bag. And then you realize, like, wow, there's so many other people doing this too. And it's like, um, and then it kind of, I realized it made me feel like a lot smaller because I thought I was like a lot bigger. And then it maybe took myself, maybe it was, I don't know if it was like humbling myself, but I feel like it just made me feel like I had a lot more like insecurities. I feel like after that, like I feel like when I was, um, it's weird. Funny enough, when I was like young, I feel like I didn't have like those issues, and it was like middle school, high school, and it was like a wave of that in and out. But then it was like when I became like moved to New York, and then was like more of like adulting, and I was like, wow, there's so many more insecurities here, just because I think there's just more people involved. There's other things that's going on. There's like other different factors that I didn't think about with a lot of things. So I think that changed a lot for me.
Yeah. What about you,
I will also
Parcel?
say like more on that point, I think that I was fortunate enough and am fortunate enough to have a father that is very present in my life. Shout out to my dad, Darrell Senior. I don't know if y'all knew that. I'm a junior. I'm a junior.
I knew that.
To an well, I know you know that. I'm talking about the viewing audience, Nikki. That's what I'm talking about. But I am a junior. Um, I love my father. He is a great father. He's the best father in the world, and he has always been, even though we've had our ups and downs. And I say that to say, as a black man, I feel like my goalpost for who I'm supposed to be as an adult, and almost low-key kind of still is the goalpost for how I'm supposed to be as an adult, is actually my dad. And I don't feel like I'm anywhere near where my dad is. And I feel like that may not be a good thing. I feel like there was this like intrinsic thing where like the people that you look up to and the people that you idolize, you then make your life mirrors of theirs. But we're two different people. Like our lives are going to
Mm-hmm.
look there. My father and I almost could not be more different. Like we are incredibly different. Um, and because of that, I grew up with a lot of internalized like issues, like a lot of issues. Like I feel like I got to be more this, I got to be more that, and as an adult, I got to have this together, I got to have that together, I got to like. Who knew how hard getting a job was? Like I thought that my dad loves his job. He's a vice principal of the high school that I went to high school at, and he has loved it. My mother has had an expansive career in education. She has been very, very successful. These people have higher degrees. These people are incredibly successful. And I thought that as long as you worked hard, that stuff just happened. I thought that it just like you did what you were supposed to do and everything just fucking worked out. And boy, was I wrong. And now my parents are just like, yeah, no, we didn't tell you that. Like, no, like things don't work out all the time. And I'm like, but you made it seem like it did though. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I always have this like, I am a confident person and I'm happy with who I am and I'm proud of myself. But I do also sometimes still judge myself based on like my parents, like how they're very well established and they're very like settled. My parents are settled. And when they were my age, they were set well, when they were my age, I don't know what they were going through because I was a child or I wasn't born. But like I no, I was born, I was like two. But like I what I'm saying is that I feel like there is this thing that when you grow up with people that look like what you think your life is supposed to look like, and then you get to their age and you still haven't done it, that is a whole new set of insecurities and challenges that arise within a person when you experience that. That's what I'm saying.
But I think something interesting that we all three share is, if I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, like our parents kind of cemented in areas that were familiar to them or where they were like born or close to areas they were born in. Whereas all three of us like uprooted our lives and left from that settled place to where settling takes on an entirely different meaning for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am originally from Mississippi and has lived in DC, New York, and Chicago. Like, y'all have been in Jordan, you're from Ohio, been in New York, Chicago. Darrell, like New York, you only live in New York, right?
I've only lived in New York in my adult life.
Yeah, so like I think that is an element also like our parents couldn't prepare us for because they didn't do it.
Yeah,
But
that's
just
true. And now
reload.
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm saying now that I think about it, like that is, I've actually never thought about that as being one of the reasons why that journey looked a little different for me. Like, my parents did. Like, my parents met when they were in college, and they went to the college that they both went to and graduated from is 10 minutes from my house. And you know what? Shout out to Pebble State University. You know what I'm saying? Like HBCU stand up. I mean, I didn't go there, but like still, they rooted in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They still live there, and our whole family is from there. Everyone in my family lives there. I mean, some people do branch out and go. Like I have a cousin that lived in DC. I have like an uncle that has lived in quite a few places, but for the most part, they all kind of settled there. And I guess with that infrastructure, things do kind of like fall in place. Like, living in North Carolina, they also had a set precedent for how their parents lived, and they kind of probably fell into that. But the three of us chose to deviate into another path, which opened up an entirely different set of problems and issues and like challenges to overcome. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, what about you, Jordan?
Um, really quick, my computer is getting ready to die, so this is my technical difficulty. Hold on one second.
I
Well, I will
don't
speak while
think.
Jordan is getting his life together. Um, but I hear my, y'all hear my, do you hear
I
echo,
do
Daryl?
hear I do hear an echo from you.
I think it's because Jordan's headphones.
Oh, oh, because I hear my echo.
Oh wow, we'll wait, and we
We'll
can
wait.
probably edit this part. No, we'll keep this echo that comes in.
Do 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 do.
Wow.
There we go.
Ah,
And we're back.
And we're back. We couldn't talk during while you had your headphones off because like we heard our echoes.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
It's cool, no
So
problem,
sorry, everyone.
no problem. But what I was gonna say to that point is like, it's one more of a question though. What about from your own journey with adulting? What have you been the most grateful and thankful for in your learning process? And then also, what was the biggest lie that you were told or led to believe?
Hmm. Well, what I will say is that again, and I feel like you know what, I know this is an adulting episode, but I feel like I've been talking about my parents a lot. So just shout out to my parents again; they're the best. But what I really think has been that I'm very grateful for is that from a very early age, my parents instilled confidence in my brother and I. Like I know I'm gonna have challenges. I know things are trouble, but I mean, I was a pretty depressed kid when I was younger, but I always viewed myself highly. I always thought to myself, like, I know that if I do this, I'm capable. I know that I can really do anything I put my mind to. So, in terms of what I'm grateful for as an adult, I can say that it is the fact that, like, no matter how hard things get, I trust myself to handle whatever is thrown at me. I truly do trust myself. And that is directly because my parents instilled that in me. And the biggest lie that I was told was, I don't know. What was the biggest lie? I don't know. I don't know. I have to come back to that one. I don't know what the biggest lie I was told or what I believed. I don't know. There's so many
What about you?
probably. Yeah.
What about you, Jordan?
Um, I would say the repeat the question one more time because you said two. I want to make sure I'm answering them
Well, Darrell
correctly.
didn't answer the first one. It was like, what?
I did answer the first one.
What was the first question?
What are you grateful for?
Yeah. What were you grateful for?
Parents who
Okay.
taught me to be confident.
Um, I would say similar, very similar to. I would say I'm grateful for my parents as well. I think um, they pushed me in a lot of ways to like pretty much just kind of like follow like what I wanted to do. Like they didn't really. I'm grateful that my parents didn't put me in a position to like do something they wanted me to do or like pressure me into that kind of thing. So I did really have like more, I say, creative control over my life, which was nice. And I think it helped me explore more about like what my actual interests were and things like that, and not being like kind of forced into this situation. So I will say I'm grateful for that. There was the second question.
What was the biggest lie you were told?
Oh, all right. I would say the biggest one probably would be uh, you know what? I would say probably about in relation to like jobs. I've because I was at least how it was put towards me and my family was like, just apply to these jobs and it's just going to come like naturally. Like it's like you got it in the bag because of like how you speak or anything like that. And I'm like, that is not how that works. So that was a complete lie, and those kinds of things like that. I feel like were not true. But I also feel like a lot of another one too was probably um actually just more simple one, like life being not that hard, not as hard as you make it. And I was just kind of like, I actually feel like that was a big lie. So I mean, because I get it, I get the statement, but it also I don't feel like it actually applied. So
I can agree with that. Darrell, you have your lie yet? Or-
Yeah, I don't think of it as I won't say it's necessarily a lie, but it's something that I was misled on, which is the fact that like the older you get, like your body changes and your ability to do things changes. Like the way that you used to move when you were 21, you can't move that same way at 31 in most cases, and your body starts to break down a little bit. And when I was younger, the adults around me seemed so capable. Like people that were my age seemed so like my dad was in the gym all the time. My mom was in the gym. Like my aunts and uncles, they all did physical work. They all were very, very physical, and you know, they moved all the time. And like in my brain I thought of getting old and your body changing as like a 80s 90s thing, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like something that happens when you're
Mm.
really old. But here I am at 35 years old, croaking when I get out of the bed, and my knees be hurting. My knees be hurting. Like I ceremoniously crack my back because it feels like it needs to be cracked. And I'm just like, dang, not be broke down as a person, and I'm like in the middle of my life. Like that's crazy.
See, everyone prepared me for that. I would say my family loves to have aches and pains, so they tell me expect that coming your way. so,
Not aches and
so that one I was prepared
pains.
for. I'm just saying everybody had an issue, and I was like, man, like this is how it is when you get older. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it is.
Yeah. For me, first, this might sound a little bit dark, but it's a little bit of light. I am grateful for all the negativity that I got in my life that required me to still rise above.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is like growing up, I was always told like you're not the best, you're not the greatest, you're not good enough. Like I was always given those tropes, and then I had to then figure out a way to still rise above that, to still well somewhat deliver, right? And at the same time, the biggest lie that I was told that hear me out is that you have to work twice as hard to get just as far. I don't think that's true now in my life. I think, if we're being honest, I don't feel like I work as hard as my parents did. I'm just coming to like my career and how life is set up. I don't think I have to work as hard. But what it is the truth for me is no matter how intelligent you are, no matter how qualified you are, this part people still may not respect it. And you're still having to live up to someone else's expectations of you, no matter if you've already proven yourself two, three, four, five times over, because people still have this perception of you, no matter what you think. And I don't think you have to do as work, I go as hard to get as far. I think you have to essentially rise above people's expectations of you. That's kind of what I see. What, Darrell? You
I
have a face.
mean, well, I see. I understand the point that you're making. I also think, in the best possible way, that's because you come from a good amount of privilege that allows you to not have to, that allows you to be able to make that statement freely, without thinking about the fact that most people don't have that testimony. Like a lot of
Do you
people
have to
have
work
to.
twice as hard?
I don't have to work twice as hard, which is why I understand that for me. But I do personally know people, like one of my best friends has to work very, very hard because they don't have a college education. They don't have, the money that my parents have to help me with whatever goals that I have. And they don't, my partner had to work twice as hard. Like people do have that struggle. Like I get what you were saying, and I'm not saying you're
Mm-hmm.
wrong. I'm just saying that, like, in general, like, while we can say that, the two of us, I think that a lot of people don't have that same testimony. Some people still, I don't think that's changed much. Some people still have to work twice as hard to get half as far as other people. But I do agree with the fact that you can be the smartest person in the room, and some people will never consider you equally, like as
Mm-hmm.
an equal. That's just true. And I hope that it's not true for the duration of mankind. I do think that the needle is being turned a little bit on that, but I could definitely go for some progress a little quicker in that front.
Well, I will say this, please, because you are right about that. Some people still do have to work twice as hard, but I think the way it was painted for me, I don't know about y'all, is because you are black, you have to work twice as hard to get just as far.
Mm.
And I
I
don't
still
think
agree with that.
I don't. For me, it wasn't necessarily just about race being black is the part I have to work twice as hard. It's
Expand on that. What do
microaggressions
you
are
mean?
because I think we deal with so many microaggressions now as in our society that it has necessarily nothing to just do with like race is not at the forefront, right? So like back in the 60s and 70s, you knew you weren't getting as far because you were black. Now,
Mhm.
it could be that. It could be because somebody just don't like the way you speak. They think you're too smart. They think like it could be a number of things that people want to discount you for that will keep you from elevating. I think that's the whole purpose of like layoffs. People getting rid of people in their orbit that they could be threatened by, not just for company metrics. Darrell, you want to
Mm,
counter or Jordan, you want to speak?
I want to let
No, I
Jordan
just
speak.
never. No, I was just gonna say I never thought of it like that in that sense, or in the sense of like with layoffs. I would say I never thought of it like that.
I still disagree with that. I think that I do. I still
I'm
disagree
trying.
with that.
I'm trying to see it. I'm trying to see it.
I
Why
still
do you
dis
disagree?
I disagree with it because if the point that you're making is that back then you were told that you have to work twice as hard to get half of what other people have because you are black. That's the point you're making, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
saying that from your experience, it's not necessarily just because you're black. It could be a million other things. And you personally don't feel like you have had to work twice as hard to get half of what your counterparts have. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think that again, that could be true for you. And that is a valuable experience if that is your experience. But I also think that there are plenty of places in the world where as you know, being black means you have to work harder. There are plenty of industries in the world where being black means you have to work harder. There are plenty of social spaces in the world where being black means you have to work harder. The work can be different, and
Mm-hmm.
our interpretation of hard over time probably changes because as society changes, we view different types of work as difficult. Like you probably, Nikki, would consider like physical manual labor to be very, very difficult. But now a lot of people consider those to be minimum wage and not well paying and not very skilled jobs, whereas
Mm-hmm.
highly intellectual jobs are looked at as more difficult. And those are the jobs that a lot of our parents and grandparents would not have been able to have. So they would look at us and say that it's harder now because you have to use your mind a lot more than your body, which is what a lot of people have used. So I'm refuting that claim because I think that there are way too many spaces and there are way too many situations and industries in the world to make a claim that you don't have to work twice as hard because you are black, because that is just not a
But
that is just
I also think we also have a little bit more agency over our lives that can make that statement true. Because when we think about our parents and people in other generations, they started at a company and then wanted to work their way up the ladder in that particular company. That is
mhm.
not the story of really millennials or Gen Z anymore. Like if we want a change in our lives and change our career, we would move to a different company that will allow a different opportunity, and we would our paths are a little bit more like this compared to when I feel, in my opinion, we were taught that it was being taught that in a space where you're trying to rise the rank up where you are and staying and retiring from where you are in this one location.
And
Like,
I think that that is true for people that work at a certain level, of people that are
mm-hmm,
mid senior level employees, I mean, people that have college degrees, people that are educated on a different level. But I'm not sure that that is the majority of black people in America. I know that there are more now than there has ever been that are educated. I know that, but that statement still just I still just feel like the structure the organizational structure of most companies is not beneficial towards black people in any way, shape, or form. I don't feel
mm-hmm,
like in any industry. I don't think that it caters towards black people. I don't think that it is made for black people unless it is a black owned company. And I think that even in intellectual structures, even in like business and tech and these industries, who you know, how
mm-hmm.
affable you are, and what their perception of who you are, all of those things are factors that can decide how far you go in that company. That is the same as it was back in the day, because there are
Right, but I
people
don't think
that
it.
are
Oh, sorry.
because there are people that have your same credibility or even less that
Mm-hmm.
don't have those hurdles to jump over. So I don't agree with that.
But I guess for me, I was saying more so, I don't consider that working twice as hard. I think of that as new obstacles that we have to face that are different. That's just my opinion, though.
Mhm.
Okay, I see that. I see that. I don't agree with that, but I do see it.
I see it. I I don't actually disagree. I see it. I think I see all aspects of it, honestly. But I also feel like I've come to a place where I feel like a lot of jobs hire, people of color just because they have to. It's
Yeah, affirmative
Hmm.
action.
a
and they
so
and they don't progress, and they don't
yeah.
progress, and they don't
Hmm.
they're in low level. I'm not even gonna get too personal. But what I'm saying is that I know from experience that oftentimes people are hired. I'm not saying they're hired just because they're black, but what I'm saying is that like it is harder for them to be taken seriously in roles that people that are less qualified than them get sometimes. I'm not playing the race card, I'm not being a victim. I'm just saying that there are I can see your point about the obstacles. And I can also see how you're saying that like that's not necessarily working twice as hard. My opinion is that it is. It's just in a different way. That's just how I feel.
I can agree with that. I can
Yeah.
agree with that from on a whole
But I
standpoint.
also think that it's good that we can sit here and talk about this and know that we have had the privilege to have that experience because
Hmm.
Yeah.
that I mean a lot of people do not, and I want to just like we don't black people are not monoliths. We don't all have the same experience, and a lot of black people don't even agree that racism is still a thing. A lot of black people feel like there is no barrier to what black people can do in any country, and that people be victimizing themselves, you know what I mean? So like I'm just glad we're in a place where we can all have different thoughts and ideas based on how society has evolved in the treatment of people in the subject of race.
I mean, too, I will say too, even my experience, I've had quite a few experiences where I've interviewed for jobs before, and I think they had a certain perception because of like the way I spoke and things like that. And then when I would get there, I would initially see like a different reaction, like, "Oh, you're Jordan," kind of thing like that. So it would be like that, you know, it's they only want you for certain reasons or certain things like that. And even to just being surprised that like, oh, you speak well enough to get this job. So let's. And again, I think you also kind of you kind of raise the bar for them because then they think like, oh, it's like more of a well spoken one. So this one is definitely this, and it fits our higher situation. So yeah, so that's another one of my experiences.
I have a question, and this deviates a little bit from adulting, but we can go back to it. Do we still are we in a place? Rephrase. Are you in a place where you have a hard time deciphering racism versus just like microaggression versus just like situation?
When you say hard time, you mean like deciphering between them and which is which,
Hmm.
or
Like
um,
when for example, um, as we all have seen lately, the Sonya, what's her last name? My God, Massey shooting. People are saying it's racism. People are saying lack of training of officers, microaggressions. Like in situations like this, do we have a hard time deciphering which is which?
um, I feel like personally for me, I mean, it depends. I would say it's definitely a situational thing because I do feel like there's at times where some of them all kind of blend together,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, and they're like, it could be a combination of things. Sometimes I just feel like it's just flat out racism where it's just like point blank, this is what this is, and
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just my opinion, I'll still be like, I'm standing 10 toes down, like this is a straight racism
Mm-hmm.
situation, and it's nothing else. But there's also times where I feel like they all kind of blend together. As far as that particular situation, are you asking, or are you just saying in general?
It could be that particular situation as well.
Um, I mean, personally, I mean, again, I'm going by a video, and the video was very like very well put together in the sense where you could see the entire thing. So I would say on my end of things that I'll say this. I feel like if that was not a black woman, I don't know if that same situation would have happened in that way.
Mm-hmm. Daryl.
Um, I think that that's hard because I always I'm always thinking like, okay, am I looking at this because it's easily triggering for me? Because like I can identify similar situations that are based in racism, or is this an actual thing that is not racist, or is this something that like I'm missing because of my, for lack of better words, racism bias? Um, and I do find myself having to think very critically about most things to determine what my true thoughts are and whether or not I perceive those thoughts to be racist in nature, or if it's just a misunderstanding, or if it's just something that, like, I'm perceiving this way because this is how I think. I'm not going to comment on that because I'm keeping my opinions on that personal. But I will say that unfortunately, I think that we have come to a point where I think that we've come to a point where identifying whether something is racist or not takes the power away from the true situation, takes the power away from, like, expanding upon the power of thought, because a lot of people, once you mention race, people shut down. Once you mention, if you are predetermined to think a certain
Mhm.
way, once you hear the word racism, once you hear this was a racially motivated thing, your mind immediately shuts off. And I think that racism is such a huge encompassing thing that it deserves more than just a simple label by a one-time observation. And I think it's a lot more tricky than what we make
Mhm.
it seem like it is. I do think, unfortunately, sometimes we can fall into victimhood when it comes to that. I also think that we
Mhm.
can make excuses for it. And I think that it's really difficult as Black people to know where to draw that line. Um, but I think sometimes those lines are very, very fucking clear. And I think that we should be loud about that. And I think that we should continue to, as a society, decide what it is. Because honestly, if you think about it, racism can mean different things to different people. Like, I know that there is an explicit definition for it,
Mhm.
but inherently you can't even get all Black people to agree on what's racist and what's not. You know what I mean? So um
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, I think that it's hard. It's really, really hard to think critically about that because we live the experiences. So it's hard to, like, dissociate certain things from being racist, even if they're not.
Yeah, and I think that for me, that's a part of the adulting part that I was like kind of addressing. Is like I have a hard time now where like my parents, what racism was to them was outlined in their face. They from Mississippi, grew up in that era. They knew what racism was. They can call it and spot it because
Mhm.
people didn't hide it. Now I can't tell as an adult if what I'm experiencing is racism or if I'm experiencing microaggression or a combination of the both or just a different opinion.
And sorry, not cut you off.
Like,
No, and to
oh, go
that
ahead.
point, it's even harder now. I agree with that. I think it's even harder now because if you give voice to it, if you voice your concern, likely those people don't see it as
Mhm.
racist. Truly, I truly believe that a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people do very racist things without knowing explicitly that it is racist. So now you are put in a position of managing your own feelings about having experienced it, managing your composure while you're relaying this message, and managing their feelings as you're relaying this message so that you don't receive pushback or fallout or whatever negative consequence comes from it. I do think that it is different. Like, racism is something that can be very well hidden in 2024. And as a Black person, you are always questioning when it is appropriate to speak out about it and when it is not, and when you are thinking too hard about it and when you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no clear answer. There's sometimes there is no clear answer, and you just have to, I don't you don't have to, but I choose to sometimes just look at it as a learning experience and, like, know that this type of thing makes me feel this way, so mitigate those situations as much as possible, you know.
And let me say this to my fellow companies out there. If you are consistently going to Black, brown people to ask if something is racist, you are asking us to do learning for you that you should be doing yourself. I don't know how many times I've been in situations where people are like, can you evaluate for this because people are thinking that this is racist and I'm not quite sure. That is also causing harm to individuals of color who are honestly trying to work in these spaces because if I say it is racist, how do
Hmm.
you look at me now?
And
Like,
Mhm.
you're gonna trigger me.
because people think they can't separate. People feel like we can't separate like fact versus feeling, and I feel like a lot of people feel that way when it comes to Black people and brown people, that we can't separate the two. And I just think that is like another part of adulting that I didn't know that I would experience in this, like in my
I
life.
will say my
Mm.
parents very much they I very much was raised to expect that in my life, if I'm being honest. Like from, I mean, I have experienced my parents experiencing racism, and I have both of my parents. It's funny because my father, although he is a very like burly, like manly man, he's also kind of a pacifist when it comes to things like this. Like he is definitely path of least resistance type of guy, and he's like, listen, they're already going to think this about you. Don't give them a reason to think extra, and that's been a lot of the contentious arguments that we've had. I'm very much like, no, I don't got to change anything about myself to be accepted by nobody. He's like, sometimes you do. Sometimes you have to be aware of the environment you're in and adjust to that. And I think that it is sad that people, specifically companies, that Loki, I don't feel like a company should be able to come to you and ask you if something is racist. I feel like that should definitely be like an HR thing that like you should not be coming to anybody
Yes.
asking if something is racist. That feels really inappropriate. Furthermore, if you have to ask if something is
Mhm.
racist, then you know there's something wrong with it and you can figure that out yourself. You're not asking if it's racist because you truly care. You're asking because you want to make sure that you're not wrong. That's it. You're not even thinking about how that person might feel. If you're my superior and you come to me and you ask me something like that, I'm going to lie to you. I'm going to lie to you because I value my position in the company and I know that depending on how I respond to you, everyone in this company will look at me differently. Because you will go tell people that story will get back to me,
Mhm.
and my response to you has very real world implications for me. So usually I won't even answer that kind of stuff truthfully. And that that's the kind of stuff that I feel like as Black people, specifically as kids growing into adults, we have had to learn that if you are in a professional environment, you have had to learn when to pick and choose your battles when it comes to that. That is an experience that I
Hmm.
truly don't feel that white people have to experience. I don't think that white people have to even think about that.
They don't. They don't.
I will share a story with you guys. I not going to the company or when this happened. My superior came to me and said, "Hey, we have this video and people are saying it's got some underlining tones. Can you evaluate it and let me know what you think?" This is a white person who came to me. And I watched the video through, and a colleague of mine and I say, we was like, this is very reminiscent of
Mm.
minstrel shows. Like the characters look like they were animated characters that look like minstrel shows. And when I said this to this person, I was like, I can see why people are saying this because this is reminiscent of minstrel shows. This person said, what is minstrel show? This is someone who's holding a chief position, was not aware of minstrel shows, which also lets me see they also, because another lady I was watching on YouTube, certain people have the ability to not even care, worry, or even learn
Hmm.
about what is racist
Mhm.
because it
Hmm.
doesn't affect their orbit.
Mhm.
So when you do call it out, they are thinking you're hypersensitive
Of
because
course.
they haven't done the work. And that's something I didn't learn, that adults just don't do work when it comes to
Hmm.
understanding people.
No, a lot of people live in a bubble in that sense, and they will. And again, people go on that line of like, do you fault them for that or whatever? But it's at the end of the day, when it comes and it affects other people, then I do feel like it does. Like that to me, then it's on you. It's on you to, because I remember too, even like when the whole Floyd thing situation happened, and where I was working at, I remember so many people at my job, white, specifically white people at my job, messaging me and asking me like, "Hey, what can I do in this situation? In this situation right now, what's like the best thing that I could like help with, or like how can I help you? Is there any kind of like one-on-ones that we should set up, or is there like a group of you guys that want to kind of get to?" And it was just like, this is so exhausting. This is not something I'm coming to do my job. I'm not coming here to be like your to one coach you through this, to
Mm-hmm.
be your therapist through this situation. And again, it's like this is something that you should take the time to research and figure out, and I don't want to be that resource for you.
that we know is performative.
It's extremely performative because again, it's like because you guys weren't doing any of these kind of conversations, these installments, different things that you wanted to do until the situation happened. So to like you said, it's very performative. So I don't want any parts.
Even going so far as creating DEI positions for them that every company's not
doing. Baby.
That's the whole thing.
Like, let's have a conversation around
they get
that.
Rid of you guys, child. This is snip.
and have the audacity to say the work will still continue without the 18 black folks who just laid off.
I think I might have told Nickie, I'm not sure, but like I was working for a company during the pandemic that quite literally like they came up with this whole DEI thing, and I was a project manager at the time, and they literally asked me to, without extra pay, by the way, they literally asked me to
join the committee,
this DEI thing, and like help me build a DEI thing. And of course, they picked up the 4 black people that were like in a position that wasn't entry level. They picked literally the 4 of us to like say something, and I'm like, so you now want to have me on top of the job that you're paying me to do. You view us as such a monolith that we all view things the same exact way, right? Because you're asking us to do it. And even furthermore, you're asking us to do more work to educate you and your company without paying me more. That's racist.
On how to treat me better.
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
I think that is racist. I think that like doing that is racist. So any company that does that is racist.
I had a previous CEO of mine came to me and asked me, could I lead the DEI work for our organization? And I said, what is the compensation for this? He tells me, he said, well, I feel like this is a part of all the work we would have to engage in. Like everyone would be paid for engaging in the work. And then I asked him, I said, how would you feel if you were asked to design and sell something without being paid for it? And he said, that is a valid point, Nick. And I said, if you want me to do this work, it's going to require you bump my salary up at least $50,000. Or here are some organizations you can look into that will do this work for us. That will not pull me away from my job.
Like they're saying, like, we want to do this the cheapest way possible, so we're just going to throw this onto you. It's like, it's literally so performative, which is why these positions are getting cut now, because they never actually cared. They just wanted to look like they did. And that's just that. Please do not get me started, because I will badmouth that company. I will literally I had to sign some paperwork saying I wouldn't say nothing, but that's over now. That statute of limitations is over, so I can literally say whatever I want to say. I ain't gonna do it because I got a modicum of decency that I'm choosing to live on right now. But don't piss me off enough because I really want to do it.
Or you say we offer Juneteenth, but we're only off because it's a federal holiday now, but you have no clue what that is.
Don't get me started about people who like don't think that you should get Juneteenth. There are organizations in New York City that don't even get Juneteenth off, even though it is a federal. I can even make the argument. Yep. I can make the argument that as a business, before, was it 2020 when Biden signed it in? It was 2020. Before 2020, I can understand if you didn't take it off.
No, like 2020.
Okay, 2022.
I
knew it was one of them. But before that, I will give you the grace of saying you can recognize it as a working holiday. As a holiday, you got to come in or whatever. But it is literally a federal holiday. What excuse do you have other than just not believing it is that important to have people working on that day? What excuse do you have? What excuse?
Yeah. And again, too, with my experience even with it so far, it's like, even I'll just say the past one, people were still like working, messaging, that people were just acting like it just didn't exist. I'm like, hey, I had to like say to several people, I'm like, this is like, we're like off today. Like this isn't. They're like, wait, and I had a few, and I literally, kid you not, I can even show you the messages. few people send me a message and say, oh wait, what's going on today? What's happening today? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you that.
Yeah, so what I've started to do is in icebreakers, people love the icebreaker. What's your favorite holiday? I proudly say Juneteenth. Proudly. Even though my favorite holiday is Christmas, I proudly still say Juneteenth because I'm going to make you sit with this. And if you don't know what it is, I'm going to make you show yourself and ask,
Now,
what is that? Just to prove to you how much you don't care about black
I
folks.
will say, just to be on the opposite end of the coin here, I have worked for companies that really truly didn't give a shit. But I will also say that I now work for a company that does actually care. And I'm not saying that they're, and it's not a black owned
Mm-hmm.
company. I work for a company that does truly care about that. And there are, I don't know if they pay these people extra, but they definitely got DEI people. I don't know if they paid them. They ain't asked me, but I'm just saying, like, they definitely do. Like, one thing that I really enjoyed was this past June. I've experienced Juneteenth with them twice. The first time I just really wasn't paying attention to what they were doing, but this time I know specifically there was an entire like like town hall meeting about it. There was like, an intelligence thing about it, and I appreciate that. And I truly mean that it did not feel performative. It didn't. It felt like they genuinely wanted people to understand this is why we're celebrating this holiday, because we know that most of y'all are white and have never heard of it and don't know what it is. And we know that you feel that way, but there are lots of people here that do truly celebrate it. And this is why you're off. And I think that while we're being critical of people, we should also acknowledge people that are taking that extra step to make sure that their employees feel like they're being seen through those things. And I will say that is one thing that I really do like about my company is that it's a pretty diverse company, and they seem to care about that.
I mean, same. My company also celebrated Juneteenth, and we were off, and nobody really messaged at my current company. But the others,
ooh, I want to say that ain't so bad. I want to be petty. I want to be petty. I want to be petty.
I was gonna say I'm just gonna be quiet about mine. Quiet.
Jordan said, can't relate.
But before we go, just buttoning up our adulting conversation. If you could have a magic wand to change your life as an adult, what is one thing you would change?
So easy. So easy for me. I would be out of debt. I would not have student loan payments. I would have done that whole thing differently. It's funny because I'm literally repping my college right now. Shout out to East Carolina. But I wouldn't have gone to that school. I know that I was going to have to pay all these damn bills. I would have literally stayed at home for 2 years. And then, listen, that's my regret. Not understanding debt. I regret that.
I'm funny enough, that was my exact same one. I was just like not getting myself immediately into debt. I think that was like one thing I would have immediately changed. And also too, over top of that, I'll say outside of that one, I'll say actually really like starting on like the things that I wanted to do like much earlier compared to like way later, because I feel like I would have been a lot further ahead. Like all the things, I feel like there's been a lot of things that are like now popular or people that are doing that if I would have like, and I had these ideas back then, if I would have did them like that many years ago, I would have been much further ahead. So I kind of like, I would have changed those things around.
Very similar to yours, Jordan. Plus, I probably would have operated my life with the confidence of a mediocre white man. Like that's not problematic. People say that all the time. But or if a mediocre white man, because we know black men, we don't really make it that far.
So you have to work twice as hard to get half as far, huh?
Shut up! No. If you mediocre, you are right where you belong. Like, honestly. Boom. Anyway, well, this is a great conversation, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Hell I Don't Know. I'm Nickie.
I'm Jordan. Oh, come on. We're supposed to say it at the same time.
I was trying to move forward. But we can do it at the same time if you want to. We don't got to change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's fine. It's fine. No, we progress.
Well,
we progress.
I am Darrell Wayne Purcell Jr.
Of course.
Always. I'm always being
Goodbye.